Howdy, my name's Anash Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. Initially, this was going to be an episode of Reading 001, but then I realized that I've not really learned about all the SCPs that the particular thing I was going to do need me to know about, so I decided to do a normal one instead. In the last episode, we read about Jungle in a Jar to the makers of music, Pile Up, Eye-Catching Goggles, and no, we did not read my propaganda machine. We just did 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1340. So we did read the Order of Cave Mantis. So we're at Propaganda Machine, Phobia Induction Corridor, Box Full of Questions, Inner Sanctum, and Stomach Bug. Let's see what's in the Propaganda Machine. It's Euclid, which implies that they can't really make it stop doing what it does. The building housing SCP-1345 is to be boarded up and marked with signs warning of hantavirus infestation. Guards under the guise of military police are to detain and question any non-Foundation persons attempting to gain entry to the building. An enhanced security force is assigned to SCP-1345-A. If it proves insufficient, security personnel at the nearby sites blank and blank can be summoned to assist. SCP-1335 is not to be fully disassembled or moved from its original location, same thing, unless it is in imminent danger of discovery or seizure by non-Foundation groups of interest. Permission from the North American Regional Director must be obtained if experimentation requires activation of single or multiple components. Activation of the complete SCP-1345 assembly is not to be performed under any circumstances without authorization from the O5 Council. Description: SCP-1345 is an assembly of equipment, SCP-1345-A, and an abandoned Quonset hut located somewhere, a United States Army installation, and an associated memetic phenomenon, B. A was constructed between 1949 and 1951 by employees of Los Alamos National Laboratories, LANL, by a direction of the United States government. A is designed to broadcast precisely modulated microwaves in a direction selected by the operator of the assembly. It is comprised of components commissioned by the United States government during a period between 1949 and 51. Along with various support equipment, the assembly contains a control computer using miniaturized vacuum tubes as computing elements, signal generation and modulation equipment digitally controlled by the computer, and a synchronized array of UHF transmitters to generate the microwave signal. The transmission system terminates in a gimbaled parabolic dish antenna mounted on a steel mast able to telescope through a hatch in the roof. The antenna is able to be aimed precisely via rotation and elevation. Several aspects of the equipment make it distinct from conventional microwave transmission facilities. The crossed-field final amplifiers and tuning units driving the antenna are over-engineered for their expected power capacity and heat dissipation needs. Each was built to handle over 400 kilowatts of power at maximum. The computer exhibits remarkable complexity compared to other contemporary computers. Records confiscated from United States government archives show that it was designed and produced specifically for this project at great cost. The transmitters and antenna are tuned to something gigahertz. This frequency is notable for being the third harmonic of a frequency which produces especially strong microwave auditory effects when directed at the human head. B is a widespread memetic phenomenon manifesting in culture as a conspiracy theory regarding a non-existent event known as the Philadelphia Experiment. An alleged event in which the United States Navy destroyer USS Eldridge variously teleported, traveled through time, or was rendered invisible. The precise date of B's official manifestation is impossible to determine, but extensive searches of printed and written media archives show that there is no mention of B prior to the first test of 1345. Reported knowledge of the Philadelphia experiment appears to have occurred in multiple individuals in a close time period. These individuals were all living at various locations directly north of A at the time of its first and only test. Affected individuals claim to have knowledge of the Philadelphia experiment, variously claiming to have witnessed it, read about it in secret United States Navy documentation, or learned about it via other methods. They soon began to contact individuals studying UFOs and other paranormal phenomena. The memetic effect is unusually subtle compared to other conspiracy theories. An unusually high percentage of those believing in B do not believe in any other conspiracy theories, and are generally placed high, 50 to 80, on the Gunner's skeptic scale. There's a scale for skepticism? Huh. Recovered documentation is scarce. Most records related to 1345 were destroyed shortly after its first test. The documents that do exist indicate that 1345 was commissioned as a part of a project called Project Viewpoint. Documentation on the greater project is nearly non-existent, but it appears to have been a program to develop highly effective psychological warfare equipment and techniques. In internal correspondence, members of the project referred to 1345 informally as the propaganda machine. Analysis of remaining documents in United States archives seemed to indicate that A was intended to be a device to use a currently unknown effect to influence the opinions of citizens of the United States and other countries. Recovered blueprints show that production of A installations, when operable, were intended to be mounted on M35 2.5-ton cargo trucks or in the bomb bays of Convair B-36 Peacemaker strategic nuclear bombers. Listing of a number of prototype programs for A's computer were recovered. Internal comments indicate a variety of purposes, including inspiring uprisings and installations of governments sympathetic to the United States, increasing regard of United States-produced products, and reducing communist sympathies in foreign and domestic communities. A list of recommended targets for the final program was also located. Locations for deployment included various countries bordering Warsaw Pact nations, Cuba, and Berkeley, California. SCP-1345 was tested on blank 1951. The first test was believed unsuccessful and the project was scrapped. This seems to have destroyed confidence in Project Viewpoint, which, together with the internal collapse and purge of whatever that was, prevented use of ANPSYCH, anomalous psychological warfare, and anomalous international intelligence, techniques by both major powers during the Cold War. The link between A and B was unknown until 1992, when a letter written by Dr. Someone Sharps was recovered from former KGB archives through an intelligence sharing agreement between the newly formed Russian Federation and the Foundation. Dr. Sharps was a contractor employed by Landl to design the modulation hardware and software for A. Before the discovery of the letter, B was believed to be a non-anomalous, though virulent, conspiracy theory. Excerpt from that letter. The first test is going to proceed within the next month. The test procedures have been approved by the project supervisor. We will be powering it to 5% of capacity and aiming it directly north. We're running a test regime designed by blank. If the machine works, anyone affected by it will feel compelled to send a postcard to a mailbox we rented in Philadelphia. Unless you wish otherwise, I have modified the test regime already. If it works, you will be able to detect the extent of its influence easily in the public media here. Look for people talking about the Philadelphia experiment. I believe I will be able to secure unsupervised time with the machine within 2 weeks. 1345 is currently inoperable due to degradation of the computer and other equipment. At some point between abandonment of the project, the door was blown open in a windstorm, and further exposure to the elements damaged most of the equipment. Effects are underway to restore 1345 to a condition conducive to more effective study. So it doesn't really sound like it's Euclid because it activates on its own, more that it's Euclid because they can't really do anything with it. Okay, phobia-inducing corridor. The phobia-inducing corridor is safe, so I guess as long as you don't go in there, then it's not a problem. Due to its immobile nature, the original facility housing 1346 has been commandeered to serve as its containment site. The SCP is to be kept under observation and unauthorized entries denied, but requires no other special security measures. Description: SCP-1346 is a corridor 3.5 by 3.5 meters and 130 meters in length, located in the sub-basement of the former Somewhere Research and Engineering Center. The entrance is marked by a heavy steel door 3.5 meters wide and almost 45 centimeters thick. An identical door sits closed at the opposite end of the hallway. The passageway itself is a seamless cement corridor having no other doors, windows, or alcoves. The ceiling has regular lighting placements. However, due to the effects of 1346, everything past 60 meters has proven impractical to maintain, rendering the last half of the corridor dark and in disrepair. The corridor's anomalous nature manifests at approximately 50 to 60 meters along its length. Shortly after crossing the 50-meter threshold, electronic devices begin to malfunction. At about the same point, subjects report hearing clicking, tapping, and other mechanical sounds, though not from any clear source. Earplugs and other audio-dampening measures neither diminish nor eliminate these sounds, according to witnesses. To date, none of these noises have been verified remotely. During this period, subjects start to report feelings of apprehension, which intensifies the longer they remain in the passageway, and the further along it they traverse. Eventually, some fear or dislike the subject harbors will begin to manifest into a fully fledged phobia. Subjects with predispositions towards uh, acluophobia, claustrophobia, bathophobia, and other immediately present conditions will respond accordingly. Others may begin to hallucinate, imagining the presence of some entity or condition drawn from their psyche. At around 90 to 100 meters or more, if more than 10 minutes have been spent in the anomalous zone, the subject becomes overwhelmed with fear, attempting to retreat from the passageway as quickly as circumstances will allow. In most subjects, the feelings of fear and anxiety subside immediately upon exiting the corridor. Many express confusion and embarrassment at their overreaction and can be often persuaded to re-enter, although this invariably leads to the same result. A minority retain a fear of the passage, in some cases resulting in long-term psychological trauma. Some subjects may subsequently deny the existence of the hallway or its unusual properties, growing agitated and hostile if pressed on the topic. Whether these are natural psychological reactions or some aspect of 1346 is not known at this time. Severe reactions are more likely to manifest the more often a person is exposed. Addendum A. Blueprints of the facility include the sub-basement and the hallway, as well as both vault doors, but nothing beyond the far doorway. Interviews with former staff indicate that while there was some awareness that the hall was odd, it was ignored. Observation of staff suggests that most people, left to their own devices, have no curiosity about the sub-basement and seem to unconsciously avoid it. Sonic imaging has revealed the presence of several rooms beyond the far vault door, but the nature and contents of these are unknown. Addendum B. Testing has revealed the presence of a strong electromagnetic field in the anomalous region of the corridor, including an unusual pattern of rapid microwave pulses. These probably account for the persistent electronic malfunctions, and may also play at least a partial role in the psychological reactions of test subjects. These wave and pulse patterns appear similar to those studied in Project Pandora, a military research program dealing with the effects of electromagnetic radiation. The source of this radiation is unknown, and it continues to be generated and unabated even when power to the subbasement is severed. Document EL 134611 log. Experiments involving fear-dampening chemicals. Disposable person 2245 1. Procedure. Subject administered diazepam, instructed to attempt to walk the length of the hallway. Subject reported feeling anxiety at the 65-meter mark. Subject began to report feelings of tremors at about the 75-meter mark. Symptoms of panic. At 85 meters, they elect to retreat, sprinting back along the corridor. Subject reports certainty that the hallway was about to collapse. Feeling vanished after exiting. Subject showed no interest in returning. Okay, next person. They underwent a week of propranolol therapy and were instructed to attempt to walk the length of the hallway. They reported uneasiness with the environment at 60 meters. At 80, they reported seeing movement. At 85, they became extremely agitated, claiming to be surrounded by thousands of spiders and insects, immediately retreats from the corridor. Subject reports immediate drop in anxiety, and upon request, re-enters the passage. Traverses about 45 meters before again turning and retreating from the room. Next person. Administered data expunged, instructed to attempt to walk the length of the hallway, under threat of termination for failure to obey. This shows signs of anxiety at the 70-meter mark. Pace slows considerably and becomes more hostile towards staff. At 90 meters, the subject reports disembodied voices threatening and mocking him. Subject becomes irrational, arguing with the apparent voice. Further instructions by staff were ignored. Shortly thereafter, subject lets out a yell and retreats. The vault door is barred, and the subject is warned that unless he returns down the hallway, he risks termination. Warnings go unheeded, and the subject hurls himself against the door repeatedly until giving himself a concussion. Experiment ends. And last one. Subject administered general anesthetic and placed via mechanical cart at foot of far door. Upon regaining consciousness, subject immediately begins to scream and thrash, then enters into cardiac arrest. Subject retrieved and successfully revived. Subject recollects nothing about the exposure, but subsequently subject becomes extremely agitated and aggressive towards anyone who brings up the topic. Note: for whatever reason, one's experience the anxiety produced by the corridor is not limited to the anomalous zone and only appears to abate upon passing beyond the near door. So they knocked the dude out, brought him to the furthest door instead of having him walk the corridor at all, and when he woke up next to the door, had a heart attack. Dang. Alright, so, test log. Experiments involving animals. Rat. Animal refused to approach the zone. This is consistent with both healthy and drugged rats. Rats placed against their will within the zone will immediately attempt to leave it. Finches, they avoid approaching the zone. Those that enter, either through force or accident, immediately attempt to leave. Some suffer cardiac arrest from exposure. Cats. Cats panic immediately about being placed in the corridor and will try to escape, battering themselves against any obstacle blocking their attempts to do so. Dogs. In the presence of a trusted human, dogs fare marginally better, and some have managed to remain in the zone for several meters before retreating. Without a human companion, dogs behave identically to cats. Reptiles, fish, and insects appear unaffected, showing neither a fear response nor any other unusual reaction to the environment at any point in the corridor. And then we have another document log. Experiment using electromagnetically shielded direct wire remote control device to traverse corridor. Remote vehicle succeeds in reaching far door, although it is unable to open it. Audio taken from the vibrations of the door detected sounds similar to heavy footsteps moving beyond the door, with a series of metallic crashes occurring midway through the recording. At about 20 minutes of exposure, the remote vehicle began to malfunction and was recalled. Further experiments pending. Proposals to blast through the far door or burrow into the area from above have so far been rejected. I think they probably should do that, though. It's only 160 meters. I think if they used an anti-tank rifle, they could take it down and see what's on the other side. Next up is a box full of questions. Wow, this episode is just full of weird, isn't it? It's Euclid. SCP-1347 is to be kept in a standard containment storage unit with 2 different sets of locks. Each set is to require a keycard and a password. The passwords and the keys are to be kept separately by 1347's lead researcher, currently Dr. Thane, and their research assistant. Said passwords are not to be shared with personnel other than members of the O5 Council under any circumstances. SCP-1347 is to be kept isolated from other anomalous items/phenomena, and it must be guarded at all times by 2 armed security personnel who are oblivious to its nature. Said personnel are tasked with preventing any unauthorized access to it, and are permitted to use lethal force if necessary. All testing of it requires written approval from the head researcher of the object. The request submitted must contain the exact wordings of the inquiry that would be inserted into 1347, the intention of the said inquiry, and a hypothesis of 1347's reply. All testing of 1347 must be supervised by the attendant security personnel. In the event that a submitted inquiry does not result in a Type A event within 10 minutes, all research personnel assigned to it are to be informed immediately. Mobile Task Force Psi-13 is to cease their current assignment, if any, and to be fully committed to ascertaining the nature of the Type B event by any means necessary unless otherwise commanded. It is strictly forbidden to insert an inquiry into 1347 that refers to paradoxes, time travel, the Foundation, or any anomalous object/phenomenon in any manner. Description: SCP-1347 is a pine box measuring 20 centimeters on each side with a hinged lid. There is a slit on one side measuring 7 centimeters by 1 centimeter. The phrase, "all answers are born from questions," is written below the slit in black ink. SCP-1347's anomalous properties will only become active in the event that writing of an inquisitive nature, designated as an inquiry, is inserted into 1347 via this slot. Every inquiry inserted will cause either a Type A or Type B event to occur. This is believed to be primarily dependent on whether the answer to the question could be answered with minimal experimentation or alteration of reality. When the inquiry is sufficiently simple to answer, a Type A event occurs. In a Type A event, the item on which the inquiry was written disappears, replaced by an object that is identical, save for the inquiry being replaced by 1347's reply. 1347 gives a reply to every inquiry regardless of the inquiry's nature. This response will occur to both subjective inquiries as well as inquiries that require some degree of specialized knowledge, so long as they are simple to ascertain. An occurrence of Type B event takes place when the inquiry inserted is adequately complex or thought-provoking. Note that a Type B event is not always distinguishable from a Type A event, and that the only consistent way to determine which has occurred is the amount of time that elapses between the insertion of an inquiry and the appearance of a reply. A Type B event is a situation in which 1347 manipulates events in the real world to perform an experiment, apparently utilizing any method it deems necessary, which will provide it with the information to formulate a reply to the inquiry. Depending on the nature of the input, the resulting experimentation varies. Once the experiment is over, the reply will appear in a manner identical to that of the appearance in a Type A event. There is no known limit to 1347's capabilities while a Type B event is in progress. SCP-1347 retains knowledge learned through Type B events and inquiries. At time of writing, it is deemed to possess slightly above average intelligence and a very large knowledge base, although exact measurement of its intelligence level is not currently possible due to its nature. Okay. So, here's a bunch of the inquiries. What is your purpose? Type A, I answer questions. What is your exact nature? Type A, I believe I answer questions is exact enough. Inquiry, what's good for dinner? You're asking a box about dining? I think the tomato stew would be your best bet. Note, interviewed staff members who consumed the tomato stew that evening indicated higher levels of satisfaction on average than those who did not. Inquiry, what is the current location of Mobile Task Force Sigma-31? Fact of interest, this inquiry was inserted prior to the prohibition of Foundation-related inquiries. Occurred, Type A event. Reply, gone mate, might want to call for some cleanup to aisle redacted. Note, Mobile Task Force Sigma-31 was found blank by SCP blank at the stated location. Okay, so apparently the box is British. Inquiry, how can we obtain an unlimited source of energy? Type B event. Nature of Type B event. Blank was incinerated by an explosion which continued for 7 days. Upwards of blank exajoules of energy were released during this time. Despite the fact that this amount of energy would have been capable of destroying an area roughly 40 kilometers in diameter, the explosion was contained to a sphere 5 kilometers in diameter. The source of the explosion, if any, disappeared after the explosion ceased. Reply produced after the cessation. Reply, I got really close, but I doubt it's actually possible. I'll think on it some more. Maybe try again if you ask in future. Note, object reclassified from safe to Euclid. Inquiry, how can we fix Agent McIntyre? Type B event. Nature of the event. SCP blank released Agent McIntyre 1 hour after the inquiry was submitted. Medical personnel on scene immediately began treatment. Reply, whoa, that was nasty. Anyway, since this seems to data expunge, that's all you gotta do. Note, 7 days later, Agent McIntyre spontaneously suffered trauma normally associated with SCP blank, albeit to a lesser degree. They fully recovered with application of SCP blank countermeasures obtained from the reply. Inquiry, what do you know of Eros, the mythological entity? Type A event. Son of Aphrodite and much better known as Cupid, his Roman counterpart. Other than having the golden arrows of love, he also had the bronze arrows of hatred, as Apollo learned the hard way. Note, the error in knowledge has been noted. Inquiry, how good is Dr. Ash in bed? Let's see. Dr. Carmichael was reprimanded for unprofessional conduct and reassigned accordingly for permitting this inquiry. Dr. Thane is Dr. Carmichael's replacement. Occurred Type B event. Dr. Ash reported that she spent the night in Agent Jean's quarters due to emotional distress over her recent assignment to Redacted. Replied, she's really warm and her skin is nice and soft. Good hugs, too. She hogs the blankets, though. Note, when interviewed 8 days later while Dr. Ash recalled the event, Agent Jean was unable to. Ash and Carmichael are damn lucky that it didn't choose to interpret that differently. That being said, this has certainly given us some interesting insight into how 1347 works, Dr. Thane. Inquiry, what is the nature of SCP blank? Type B event. Fact of interest, this inquiry was inserted prior to the prohibition of Foundation-related inquiries. Nature of the event. SCP blank breach containment. It did not pose any harm to Foundation personnel, in contrast with its normal behavior. It was returned to containment 7 days later after it inexplicably ceased to resist containment. Reply. So this thing basically does data expunge. Good luck with that, I guess. Investigation indicates that the containment breach was caused by a momentary lapse in concentration on the part of attendant personnel. Note, all future inquiries that mention the Foundation will not be permitted on grounds of sensitive information and potential containment breach, Dr. Thane. Inquiry, what is my next question? Type B event. Nature of Type B event. No reply was produced until the next inquiry was submitted. Reply, what is your opinion of Aleister Crowley and his works? Note, SCP-1347 does not appear to possess telepathic nor predictive abilities. Inquiry, what is your opinion of Aleister Crowley and his works? Type B event. It used to say unknown, but now says a personal copy of biography of Aleister Crowley owned by research assistant Jacobs disappeared, as evidenced by camera investigation. The copy reappeared in its previous location 7 days later. The reply was produced after the reappearance of the book. Reply, well, he was kinda nutty, but he hit a few points pretty spot on, particularly Redacted. Note, unless we're missing something big, that's bullshit, Dr. Thane. Inquiry, how can the problem of poverty be solved? Type B event. While it is most likely unknowable the exact extent to which events were influenced by 1347, genocide occurred and redacted. A total of something 100,000 casualties were recorded, corresponding to blank percent of the population. The majority of the casualties occurred in poverty-stricken regions. When the United Nations intervened and forced a cessation of the genocide, 1347's reply appeared. Killing them off seems to be one option. Weapon sales helps too. Note, a week after the massacre ceased, immigration to Redacted surged, restoring the population size to roughly blank percent of its original value. The original GDP of the country experienced minimal depreciation compared to the most recent statistics prior to the event. Additionally, the Gini coefficient fell by 0.25 compared to before. Media coverage of the event became negligible after 1 week at approximately the same time. Note, Dr. Blank refused its amnestic administration and required 4 months of psychological therapy before being considered fit to work. I guess that would be a thing. Oh, hey, how can we solve poverty? Congratulations, your question caused hundreds of thousands of people to be destroyed. How do you feel? I feel like I need some time off. Okie dokie. We can drug you? No, I'll just take the therapy. The box of questions seems fun, though. Provided you don't ask it questions that require it to do experiments, but you also wouldn't really know what questions would require it to do experiments. Although I guess that's why they're like, hey, so, no questions about time paradoxes. Alright, so now we got the Inner Sanctum. Is the Inner Sanctum also going to be weird? Oh, God, it's Keter. It seems like a surprisingly short entry to be a Keter, so there's probably some openable boxes. Due to the impossibility of transport, 1348 is contained on site at the Site-87 Archaeological Containment Unit, 81 kilometers southeast of El Taiba, Syria, in the Jabal al-Druze Mountains. Compartmentalized... Why did I say it like that? Compartmentalized containment duties are assigned to C-1348A, Team A, and Team B. With the exception of bi-weekly containment review meetings between Site Director Binyamin Khan and Team B Director No One, communication between Team A and B are to occur only in Conference Room 2A. To minimize the risk of cross-contamination, all inter-team communications related to ritual standards and performances must be conducted via a staff member belonging to Y chromosomal haplotype CMH6, whatever that means. Containment Team A shall be comprised of Foundation employees recommended by Class 4 Site Supervisory personnel, subject to disqualification for the following reasons: present membership in a religious faith, prior exposure to a registered memetic agent, fluency in Amharic, Ge'ez, Aramaic, or any Southern Semitic language, prior exposure to transmissions from SCP blank. Team A duties include providing ritual supplies necessary to perform 2, monitoring Team B and civilian celebrants for compliance, selecting celebrants for participation in ritual containment, providing updated protocols for daily performances of 2, monitoring members of Team B during furloughs from the containment area, and developing and executing Protocol 228 Melaka. Or possibly Melacha, but it's probably Melaka. At no time shall personnel involved in 228 Melaka be exposed to recordings or transcripts of 2, enter 3, or be permitted to view the remains of 1E. Candidates for Team B shall be selected from individuals matrilineally descended from Druze, Mandean, and Mizrahi Jewish populations. Membership in Y chromosomal haplotype CMH6 is strictly disqualifying. Due to the practical difficulties in locating suitable candidates in Foundation employment, Class Omega civilian celebrants with appropriate genealogy may be substituted for Foundation personnel with approval of the Site Director. At dawn, noon, and dusk, selected celebrants are to perform 2 according to present ritual protocols. At all times, ritual celebrants are to behave according to the prescribed ritual purity codes specified in Document 742 Kitab and 983 Rasail, as well as additional protocols instituted by Team A. To the extent that such purity codes conflict by mandating the forbidden or forbidding the mandatory, celebrants may register individual ethical preferences with the Site Director. To avoid inadvertent ingesting of ritually impure substances, celebrants belonging to Team B are to receive parenteral nutrition only, delivered under ritual supervision by Director somebody. Due to ongoing risk of memetic transference, whatever, performance of 2 is authorized only when necessary for the containment of 3. Members of Team B and civilian celebrants are permitted to exit the inner containment area contact family members, or access classified Foundation documents only upon written permission from the site director. Violation of central containment protocols constitutes grounds for immediate implementation of Protocol 228 Melika and transfer of primary containment responsibilities to the 228 Melika team. Whew! Okay, so, description. SCP-1348 is a modified cave complex located 81 kilometers from El Taba, Syria, in the Jabal al-Druz Mountains. Upon initial discovery by IAEA monitors on either March the 6th or June the 3rd, the complex was believed to house a Syrian reactor. Subsequent Israeli airstrikes on the site resulted in the discovery of 3 unknown chambers. Per intergovernmental compact with the Israeli and Syrian governments, Foundation agents responded, containing 1348 1, 2, and 3, and constructing the Site-87 containment unit. 1E is an anomalous humanoid originally observed performing the ritual practice, now designated as 2, inside the 1348 ritual complex. At some point, 3 weeks after their initial containment, the subject entered status epilepticus and died. So it sounds like they had a seizure. During containment, the subject produced 3 utterances in an unknown Southern Semitic language, but otherwise made no attempts to communicate with Foundation staff. Food, water, and bedding were declined. Intravenous nutrition proved impossible. Subject otherwise exhibited no anomalous behavior. For autopsy results, consult document 1348 SMR9. 2 is a ritual practice of unknown provenance. Yeah, there's all the extra documents. Spoken portions of 2 are performed in an unknown Southern Semitic language. Semitic? Okay, I said it right. When adequately performed by individuals meeting unclear ritual criteria, 2 prevents full retraction of the veil surrounding 3, an obligatory precursor event in scenarios XK734, XK918, and XK337. At present, details of the religious faith underlying 2 ritual criteria necessary for adequate participation in 2, and the causal mechanism connecting 2 with the retraction of the veil are speculative or unknown. When performed by appropriate celebrants, adequate performances of 2 are mimetically virulent, inducing suggestibility, religious mania, and desire to perform the ritual practice in 38% of exposures. Repeated exposure results in ritually themed obsessive compulsion. The mimetic transmission rate of 2 appears to increase as successive revisions approach the ideal state. For unknown reasons, members of haplotype CMH6 appear to be immune to the adverse effects of this mimetic transference. While present transcripts and recordings of 2 are not believed to be virulent, existing containment guidelines require certified Foundation linguists to minimize active exposure to full ritual recordings. 3 is the central chamber of 1348 complex. Due to high neutron flux, the chamber was originally believed to be a storage site for high-grade radioactive waste or an unshielded reactor core. Initial investigation of the chamber by remote drones revealed an elaborate rectangular chamber decorated in proto-Semitic style. Repeated motifs include rams, serpents, slaughtered bulls, wounded lions, hawks, and depictions of ritual practices similar to 2. In the center of the room is a raised platform with a 9-meter radius surrounded by cylindrical sheath constructed of beryllium bronze. At dawn, noon, and dusk, the sheath retracts, causing neutron flux inside 3 to increase the lethal levels. Performance of 2 appears to provide celebrants with substantial protection against radiation poisoning, and results in complete closure of the outer sheath. Attempts to view the area within the sheath, except by celebrants during performance of 2, have been unsuccessful. Celebrants, including Foundation staff, are unable or unwilling to disclose the inner region's contents. For certified information concerning the veiled region of 3, Class 4 staff may consult document SCP-1348 SMR11. Before we get to that, I'm going to take a guess and say that this SCP is the Ark of the Covenant. So now let's check these documents and see what's up. Post-mortem summary for SCP-1341-1D. At some point. Subject E. Okay, so it's because when that person died, I guess. Body is of a taxonomically anomalous humanoid with pre-mortem history of severe injury. Of the 10 external limbs originally present, 3, both legs, 1 wing, show signs of amputation by avulsion below the second joint. Head is presumed to have been genetically humanoid prior to injury, with the exception of a bilaterally symmetric third orbit located 1.2 centimeters above the frontal prominence. Eyes missing, presumed due to injury. Optic canal is present in 2 grossly normal orbits. Analogous structure present in anomalous frontal orbit. Crushing injuries to frontal sinuses preclude reconstruction of original contours of facial bones. No external genitalia are visible. Injuries show signs of abnormal keloid formation, indicating complete healing process. External injuries non-fatal. Internal examination. Structures equivalent to liver, lungs, heart, and brain are present. Kidneys are absent. Gross anatomical investigation revealed a simple blind gut terminating in a rudimentary caecum. Urinary tract and anus absent, as no stomach or caecum contents were apparent at the time of autopsy. Gut is presumed vestigial. Majority of lower abdominal cavity occupied by a segmented organ or tumor of unclear function and histology. On histology examination, muscle and organ tissue displayed signs of catabolism and macrophage infiltration consistent with severe malnutrition. Cause of death: malnutrition. Addendum ATP9. For complete histologic and gross anatomical data, consult document ATP9 full autopsy, which is not here. Shrink that document. Next document. Okay, begin recording 9:13 a.m. at some point. Dr. Khan. This is the bi-weekly containment meeting cycle 3 ritual revision 8. It is now 9:13 a.m. Present at this meeting are Dr. Benjamin Khan, head of Team A, and Dr. Blank, head of Team B. Ready to begin. Inaudible. You'll have to speak up. I don't think the microphone caught that. First on the agenda are revisions to the protocol, the containment protocol. Just to catch everyone up, we received O5 approval last week to pass the veil and conduct the hypothetical interior portions of the ritual. We're obviously not quite there on the containment procedures. Some of Team B is suffering from radiation poisoning, including Dr. Blank, but we don't expect any fatalities. 2 Omegas botched the ritual. We're going to need to rotate them offline for 3 weeks of chelation. Do we have agents in line as replacements? As you know, Ben, I'm uncomfortable with the idea of doing this with Omegas. Not just because they're hard to train. We've got some feelers out with Herev. I think we have 2. It looks like we have 2 prospects. I think we should be able to move in new agents as soon as Blank. So, no, not yet. We've got 4 Sabian Omega candidates queued up. We've just got to get them trained in the ritual. It's getting bad in there. See if you can speed that along. I mean, I'll see what I can do, but I can't promise. Next order of business, we're going to need a report on what's inside the veil. As you know, we can't get instrumentation in there, so that's not happening. Put it in Kitab. Team B can't tell you what's beyond the veil. I told you that's unacceptable. Direct from O5. We've got to have some sort of read on exactly what it is we're containing in there. Unless this is a ritual protocol, we can't crosstalk. No, it's not ritual. No, it's not. Ben, you need to trust me on this. Put it in Kitab. Mosh, we're going off the record for a minute. Be a mensch and turn the tape off. Okay, so I guess they're both or one of them at least is Jewish then? Request denied. Per 057, monitoring of 1348 containment review meetings is mandatory. We need to know. Direct from 057. They're threatening to shut you down. How are we supposed to protect civilians from what's in there if we don't know what it is? He's not dangerous. Look at yourself. The sores and your teeth are falling out. And you tell me how it's now that it's not dangerous? How do you tell me that it's not dangerous? It's the ritual, Ben. The ritual. It's not intentionally. And we're not protecting the world from him. We're protecting him from the world. You keep telling me that the memetics aren't affecting you, but listen to yourself. Think about it. You were out here with me. We worked together. You saw what I saw. How can you still have faith with all that we both know? It was hard to have it before. I used to think there was some mistake. Then I passed the veil. Now I know it's all for the best. Listen to what you're saying. Just listen. It's all for the best? Do you know what it means for me to say that to you? That it is all for the best? That this is the best of all possible worlds? That this is? You know what we saw at Aindara. And I am telling you that all this, everything, it is the best we could ever hope for. Please, please, don't be hysterical. I know it's hard for you. Tell us what you saw. You know what the protocol is if O5 shuts down Team B. You need to tell us, or what happens to you is going to be out of my hands. You don't understand. When you first came here, you asked me, why do you think these people gave up on their faith? Ben, I know. It's because he thought it best that we not know the truth. And it's true. Ya Allah, Ben, it's true. No one can ever know that we owe him so much. Please, at least think about it. I can tell O5 you've got radiation poisoning. I can tell them that you're working on the report. I can't hold them off forever. End recording. Next one. SMR 11 interview Central Region 3. Okay. Background. On December the 5th, 2011, the director of B, was found unresponsive in quarters suffering from severe radiation poisoning. Upon O5 authorization, A instructed an Omega-class celebrant to deviate from ritual protocols and enter the Central Region of 3. After emerging from the Central Region, subject was unresponsive. The interview appended below was conducted during a brief period of lucidity 3 days after initial exposure. Good morning, 09142. The doctors tell me you've been up and around. Do you know who I am? You're Dr. Khan. Ben Khan. You live in the cave outside the door. That's right. I have a few questions. Can you answer a few questions for me? They told me I should trust you. Let's start with the ritual. Do you remember what you did? Yes. They told me I should stand with my back to the veil, that I should say the words, and when the words were over and I had said all of them, I shouldn't look no matter what I heard. And what did you do? I looked like you told me. And what did you see? He is very old. He is hurting very badly. He's underwater, in space, and everywhere else. He cannot get off his chair. He is stuck there forever because he is so badly hurt. I'm sorry, 09142. I don't understand. What did you see in there? I can't remember very well anymore because of the accident, but I remember one time I saw this old lion on television on a nature special. He was badly hurt. The other lions ate him. I think the lion from the television is in there. I think that lion is your uncle. You've got to think hard, 09142. Can you tell me how it got hurt? I don't know. I think we did something bad. The song is about how bad we are. No, that's wrong. We didn't do anything bad. We weren't supposed to happen. We happened. It wasn't our fault that we happened. I'm having a hard time understanding. Okay. The song goes like this. I don't know how to say that. It means he did something wrong. What he did saved us. Now he has to be punished. Now he has to stay behind the veil. What was he doing when you saw him? He was looking out. I saw that he saw us. We saw him. Others saw him. They weren't in the circle with us. They were standing outside the circle. Then we had to sing about how much he hurts because of us, to make the veil close, so the others don't see him back. They are very angry. They don't remember things for very long, less well than me, I guess. Is he dangerous? Dr. Ben, I'm very tired. Can I go back to sleep? You've almost done your job. I just need some more information. He says he wants you to come home. He misses you, but I think he's talking about your father, not you. So you don't have to if you don't want to. I think we're done. You can sleep now. Anna, turn up his morphine drip. Let him have as much as he wants. Okay. Background. On blankety blank 3 days after his interview with 09142 and 5 days after the death of Director Blank, Site Director Khan compiled a new instance of 2 and entered the inner containment area. After performing external portions of 2, Dr. Khan entered the central region of 3. He has not been seen since, and the veil has failed to retract. Per 057, B containment procedures are suspended upon retraction of the veil. So upon retraction of the veil, A is to immediately execute Protocol 228 Melaka. Okay. Final review. SCP-1348 ICL-8. Final incident review. Background. On blank, 3 days after interview, in accordance with Foundation protocol for investigating security breaches by senior staff, Foundation internal security personnel sequestered all electronic devices, paper files, and personal effects related to prior or present assignments by Site 93 personnel. After detailed forensic review, internal security's preliminary conclusion was that Dr. Khan, motivated by personal distress in the aftermath of the death of Director Blank, spontaneously and unilaterally decided to deviate from containment protocol and enter the central region. On blank blank blank, the following letter was returned unopened to Dr. Khan's primary residence in Haifa, Israel. Judith, it is strangely simple to be writing the last letter I will ever send. As long as I can remember, the truth has had consequences. So I've withheld as much as I could, but now that the consequences are so very imminent, I will be departing beyond their reach. I have a confession. When you were 10, I told you that I was a linguist for the Institute. When you were very young, 3 perhaps, this was true. By the time you were old enough to ask, I was wise enough to lie. I had other duties. Before you retreated into the Torah, when you were still rebellious, you once told me that I loved my country more than I loved you. Why did I have to be a spy and not your father? I could not answer, because I could not tell you that you were wrong. I served the world, not Israel. I served out of fear, not love. Before the Shoah, your grandfather was a typesetter in Danzig. The Germans burned his presses and took him to Monowitz, and he worked at the printer shop. After the Americans came, he went to Israel. He fought at Jaffa, and after the war, he came to Barkai? And then I was born. These were the great and terrible events in his life, and I only met him after they had passed. Because I only saw the outlines of the events which had shaped him, I could not understand why he was such a hard man. Eventually I gave up. I came to understand that I could never understand. I could only cast my forgiveness into the dark, not knowing what it was that I was forgiving. When you were 16, Eleazar told me that he wanted to marry you and to study Torah at Bnei Brak. I screamed at him that there was nothing in the Torah and that he was a fool. I told you that if you married him, I would never speak to you again. I knew then that if there was a God, he was vast and terrible and blind. You cannot know how I knew this. But I was wrong, Judith. What does the Torah tell us? That the name once moved upon the water, that he broke bread with Abraham, that he wrestled with Jacob and broke his thigh, that he buried Moses in the clay beside the Jordan. But now the temple is a ruin. The people of Moses are scattered, and we have lost even the name. For so long I have stood on the edge of the chasm which separates us, demanding that he explain. When you married Eleazar and you covered your hair, I thought you were abandoning me. But you were seeking after the name which I had abandoned, unafraid to cast your forgiveness into the depths of the mystery. If you were unafraid, even as a child, why have I hesitated for so long? It is late. I'm tired. Tomorrow I will anoint myself with oil, I will bathe in the font, and I will speak his terrible name. When the sun rises, I will stand before my broken father, and the fathers who were broken before him, as someday you will stand before me, as someday you will stand before him. I will be held to account for my absence. I will hold the name to account for his, and I will forgive him. I love you. I love you, Father. In light of this new information on blank blank blank, the Incident Review Board had altered its conclusion and recommendation. Prior to entry, Dr. Khan was suffering from religious mania brought on by exposure to 2. As a result, the Foundation now concludes that haplotype CMH6 does not provide effective protection to ritual-associated mimetic effects. Conclusion. Per 057, B containment procedures are suspended. Remaining B personnel to be treated with amnestics and quarantined until verifiably cleared of all memories relating to 2. Upon retraction of the veil, A is to immediately execute Protocol 228 Malika. Well, dang. And that brings us to Stomach Bug. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Stomach Bug. Well, it's a bug, and it's Euclid. All specimens of SCP-1349 in the Foundation's possession are to be kept in a reinforced 1x2x2 terrarium, or meter terrarium, vacant of all organisms but specimens of 1349. At no point should more than 15 specimens be kept in containment. The terrarium is to be cleaned out bi-monthly, and any eggs present at this point should be frozen. Any excess instances of 1349 or those found outside of containment should be killed and incinerated at earliest convenience. Once per week, the colony of 1349 is to be fed 2 kilograms of meat in a moderate state of decomposition. Staff members not handling 1349 are also required to wear standard biohazard suits regardless of proximity to the handler. Description: SCP-1349 are a variant of the Calisoma sycophanta beetle. 1349 do not pass the larval stage and grow to be between approximately 5 and 15 centimeters. The saliva is slightly corrosive and causes an acute allergic reaction on the skin of a living organism upon contact. It produces a chemical similar in structure to reversine with the salivary glands. If 1349 bites a living organism, it injects a chemical compound into the bloodstream of the organism. This compound induces marked changes in the reproduction and characteristics of the cells in the mucous membrane of the stomach. This triggers the growth of multiple neoplasms after a period of 4 to 6 days, averaging between 9 and 20 millimeters, which function as miniature stomachs. These growths are connected to the digestive tract by several vessels, all leading back to the main stomach of the subject, and initially aid in the digestive process. Any organism bitten by 1349 is labeled as 1. These growths will begin to spread to the intestinal tract of the subject after an additional 3 days. In 35% of cases, I don't know where I got 13 from. These microstomachs will also begin to spread to the esophagus and lungs of the subject, effectively drowning them in gastric acid. After approximately 14 days from the initial growth, the digestive tract will begin to overflow with gastric acid, causing the stomach of the subject to rupture, and it causes death in 60% of cases. The gastric acid reducing a large portion of the body into a slurry. In the other 40% of cases, the growths do not reach critical mass in the body, and the subject dies from extreme malnutrition as the food ingested is broken up rapidly before the body can properly absorb it. Any substance digested by these cysts are no longer found in the subject's body. The subject is also found to lose weight equivalent to the mass of the substance consumed, regardless of what the substance mass would be post-digestion. Any attempts to operate on the growths have so far ruptured them, revealing them to be filled with a liquid similar in nature to 1349 saliva. 1349 was brought to the Foundation's attention after an abnormally high percentage of patients were diagnosed with gastric cancer somewhere in Oregon. Investigations into the area revealed an infestation of approximately blank thousand specimens of 1349 in a local slaughterhouse. The building was demolished and any affected corpses were incinerated. All unafflicted civilians were administered Class A amnestics. Since coming to the Foundation's attention, blank smaller outbreaks have been noted nationwide. See Addendum 3. On Addendum 1, researchers' notes of the reproductive cycle of 1349 are as follows. The adult specimen will puncture an organism's skin and inject saliva into the wound. After approximately 14 days, the organism's stomach ruptures and partially digests the corpse. 1349 will retrieve the largest remaining growths and relocate them to the nearest safe area, where they are drained and filled with eggs. If there has been no available organism to infect and harvest, 1349 will lay approximately 6 eggs every 2 months. The larvae eat their way out of the neoplasm's membrane and survive on slurry until adulthood. Specimens expire naturally after 5 months. Addendum 2. During observation, Dr. Blank noticed several specimens swelling. Testing revealed that the mass gained was equal to that lost by 1. Testing of the contents of the observed 1349 stomachs revealed that they contained trace amounts of the food recently ingested by 1 in an advanced state of digestion. The subject initially bitten by 1349 specimens was currently undergoing chemotherapy blank kilometers away from the site. Addendum 3. Security footage at a mall in blank Iowa shows an unidentified male releasing several 1349 specimens in the food court after closing hours. Several flyers and local clubs depict 1349 saliva as some form of miracle weight loss supplement. It seems like it would be vaguely related to the "Are we cool yet" thing, if not for the fact that it makes people die by explosion of acid. But that's going to do it for this episode of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the next episode, we'll be reading about the Pixel, the Mobius Cave, the Sentient Whirlwind, Comforting Centipedes, and Fancy Talking Soup. If you like this video, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you're notified of future uploads, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later.